Hello, everybody. It's me, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. How is everybody this Friday? It's Friday, July 26th. This is an exclusive for my subscribers only. If you're new here, please subscribe to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on YouTube. This is the first story in my book, my second book, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 2, coming out in August. So y'all get the exclusive on this. So I love you guys. Thanks for the support. I really do appreciate that. So I'm going to give this out to you guys. And don't forget on Saturday night, tomorrow, midnight, Dogman all night long, live show, BMR, Krista, Brandy, and Monica with some good Dogman encounters that we are going to break down. Thank you for coming on in and watching this. Again, the first story from Book 2 coming out in August. Hi, Rob. My name for this story is John. I was hiking on a well-known Appalachian trail running through the state of Vermont with my hiking partner Lance. It was early June. The year was 1997. We went out early to scout ahead for a camping spot, of which my friend Lance and I got together for our yearly get-together. We had been friends since high school, and with our hectic schedules, we made a point to get caught up at least once per year. It was also nice that our two wives, Laura and Beth, also friends since high school, had a chance to get together and catch up as well. A perfect weekend for lifelong friends. The trail that we hiked led us to a perfect spot with a magnificent view of the mountains. It had an open area backing up to the tree line, with a rather nice-sized stream that flowed through the campsite to provide for some good and hopeful fishing. It was all set. We found the perfect spot and planned to head out the following weekend. Lance and I met at the trail early that next Friday, parked our vehicles, and proceeded on a 5-mile hike into the woods to our location. It was a beautiful morning in the lower 60-degree range and not a cloud in the sky. The tall trees along this part of the Appalachian Trail also provided for more than adequate shade to make the temperature even more pleasurable. The further up the trail we hiked, Lance and I heard what sounded to be that of a large tree coming crashing down to the ground just ahead of us by about 30 yards or so. Sure enough, after another few minutes hiking, it was laid in the path ahead of us. It was a rather large tree, about 30 feet long, laying across our path. Lance and I started to examine this tree. We took note that it was not an old or sick tree. It appeared healthy, very green. The odd thing was at the base of this tree, perhaps 5 feet from ground level, is where it was snapped. It was very fresh, and we took note that the barrel of this tree had to be at least 6 or 7 inches in diameter. This is very thick to be simply pushed and snapped straight down to the ground. This took some energy and extreme power. The power of not any men. Hell, 50 men could not have accomplished this feat, especially how clean this break was. Lance and I stopped, kind of in awe, and admittingly, we got a little scared. There were no hikers in our area. In fact, we suddenly realized there was no sound in the forest. not even the chirping of a bird or smaller animals bustling about. This suddenly put a very eerie and strange sense of fear into both Lance and our demeanor. We had never heard the forest so quiet. It was like having a bunch of cotton shoved down your ear canal, or wearing headgear to muffle the sounds of gunshots at the firing range. Lance and I decided to make our way to camp, which was perhaps 1 or 2 miles ahead, tops. Now, not to sound cliche, we have all heard of people's Bigfoot encounters. That feeling of being watched or even being paralleled by something while walking in the woods. I kid you not, Rob. The moment that we left the fallen tree, Lance and I experienced both these events. We looked at each other, and it seemed we read each other's minds as we put our fingers to our lips to silence each other, to stop, and to listen. We felt a presence. And not sure enough, when we walked, we heard the crackling of the underbrush flanking us to our left side. The steps were bipedal. You could almost feel the vibration beneath our feet. Again, when we stopped, the bipedal walking, or perhaps stalking is the better word, stopped as well. This happened almost all the way to our campsite. Unnerved, Lance and I quickly set up camp, sat down, and went over what we had just experienced. It was less than 10 seconds when we both started talking about Bigfoot. Lance and I did believe in the existence of such a creature, but like most, it was simply a passing thought. We have heard the stories and frankly viewed it as entertainment. However, this was not entertaining, and we do believe that there was a Bigfoot nearby. We believe it knocked down the tree as well as following and watched us. We still had the feeling of being watched at the camp. We had to decide if we were to turn back or wait it out. We decided to wait it out, and perhaps that was the wrong choice. Trying to get our minds off the possibility of a Bigfoot stalking us, we went down to the stream. The stream that I had mentioned earlier in this story, to try our luck fishing. The fishing did in fact calm our nerves, and that feeling of being watched, strangely, faded. That was very welcoming. We landed a bunch of smaller sized trout, and now we were excited about going back to cook them for our meal. We even started to joke about our imagining this entire episode. Bigfoot, oh my gosh, we exclaimed. Now, the tree knocked over was a fact, but maybe we were just spooking ourselves this entire time regarding the footfall and the being watched, or that feeling. It was not until we returned to camp that we now know that this was indeed a Bigfoot. Surrounding our campsite, we found huge human-like footprints. Or I guess you would call them tracks. They measured 22 inches long by at least 6 or 7 inches wide. There were several tracks, some more distinctive than others. The one track that really flipped our lids, for the back of a better word, was one track in particular. It very distinctly had been pressed into the ground, and you could clearly see 5 oversized toes to go along with the 22-inch length. Lance and I were kind of in shock, yet somewhat excited, if this makes any sense at all. Now we had to determine if we needed to go home or stay. We went over about the alleged Bigfoot sightings and really never heard of Bigfoot hurting people. We were somewhat relieved, I guess, in a sense. So we decided to man up and at least spend one more night and see how it goes. I know you probably think this is crazy, but there was also something about this that spiked our adrenaline and curiosity at best. Nighttime fell, and Lance and I, as the night progressed, were much more calm and relaxed. Then that stopped. Not 50 yards from camp, we heard a very loud and thunderous vocalization from an animal we had never heard before in our lives. It was almost beast-like. Then, very much like hearing the first tree crashing to the ground, a very similar thud smashed into the ground. Then all of the forest went silent. Much like before, we sat, we waited. We sat for several hours and waited. Finally, Lance and I sprang to our feet and went to investigate what we believed was another tree being knocked over. 50 yards towards the tree line, there laying in front of us, like we thought, was another huge tree snapped and pushed over. After a minute or so, the thunderous vocalization sounded, but this time it was much closer. Lance and I looked deeper into the woods and see a very tall and robust shadow being eclipsed by the moon. The shadow was alive, as we saw a set of huge yellow glowing eyes blinking back at us. Carefully we walked, but did not run back to camp. We sat up all night long until daybreak. Lance and I now are 100% convinced that Bigfoot does exist. Oddly, we did not go home. However, we did pack up our gear and headed back to our vehicle and found another camping spot some 30 miles away. Later that night at our newer camp, we heard that thunderous vocalization again. It was just much further out. We just sat and listened, and we finished our trip together. I will leave it at that, Rob. That's all that had happened. Thank you for sharing if you decide to do that. Well, I did decide to do that, John, and it's the first story in the book. Hey, listen, not every story is creepy or scary. And again, there's over 55 stories in book 2. This is one of them. It's a mix of Bigfoot Dogman, just like book 1. Some are creepy and haunting and scary, and some are like this. But you know, when it comes to the stories, you guys, I put them out as I receive them because everybody's story is important. That's what you get from me. You get from me honesty and integrity. The story was cool, I thought. This is data. This is something that we all can reflect back on. I hope you liked it. I was thinking about having a spookier story for the first story. If you do want to leave a comment to help me with that, that might be cool. Because I'm still in the process of editing everything. Maybe something more robust to start the book. I don't know. But again, it's not coming out till August. I'm still in the process of the edit process. At any rate, I do what I do. I am BMR. Love you guys. Subscribe if not already. And until next time, I am Bigfoot, Michigan Rob.